దూర విద్యా విధానంలో డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ ఓపెన్ యూనివర్సిటీ దేశంలోనే మొట్టమొదటి సార్వత్రిక విశ్వవిద్యాలయం. దాదాపు 2.5 దశాబ్దాలుగా దూర విద్యా విధానం ద్వారా కంప్యూటర్ కోర్సును అనుసంధానం చేస్తూ BA, BCom, BSc డిగ్రీ కోర్సులను అందిస్తోంది. పోస్ట్ గ్రాడ్యుయేషన్ స్థాయి, డిగ్రీ, డిప్లొమా స్థాయి కోర్సులను ఔత్సాహికులైన విద్యార్థులకు అందిస్తోంది. డెవలప్మెంట్ స్టడీస్లో సెంటర్ ఫర్ ఎకనామిక్స్ అండ్ సోషల్ స్టడీస్ ద్వారా ఎంఫిల్, PhDతో పాటు విశ్వవిద్యాలయమే స్వయంగా దూర విద్యా విధాన అంశంపైన PhD వంటి పరిశోధనా కోర్సులు ప్రవేశపెట్టింది. సుమారు 4.5 లక్షల మంది విద్యార్థులు ఈ విశ్వవిద్యాలయం నుంచి ఉన్నత విద్యావకాశాలు పొందుతున్నారు. డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ సార్వత్రిక విశ్వవిద్యాలయం స్థానికంగా స్వయం బోధనా పద్ధతిలో ముద్రణ రూపంలో రూపొందించిన కోర్స్ మెటీరియల్ అందిస్తోంది. కోర్స్ మెటీరియల్ అధ్యయనానికి సహకరించే విధంగా రేడియో, టెలివిజన్ పాఠ్యాంశాల ఆధారంగా కార్యక్రమాలు ప్రసారం చేస్తోంది. అధ్యయన కేంద్రాల ద్వారా ఏర్పాటు చేసే సలహా సంసర్గ తరగతులు, సైన్స్ ప్రాక్టికల్ సౌకర్యాలు విద్యార్థులకు స్వయం అధ్యయనానికి ఒక చక్కటి అవకాశం. ఇవి విద్యార్థి సమీపంలో ఉండే అధ్యయన కేంద్రం నుంచే పొందొచ్చు.
Welcome to the teleconference of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University on the topic Mass Communication and Public Relations in Transforming India as a Global Economic Player. This conference has been organized as part of our MA Mass Communication, Public Relations and Journalism curriculum for the benefit of the students who are pursuing this program in the university. While viewing the teleconference, all those who are desirous of asking questions are requested to telephone to the following numbers. The panel speakers will answer to your questions. The numbers are 040 270 31431, 040 270 31432, 040 270 31433. Before we start discussion on today's topic, I am reminded of a quotation of a great economist who said, "Eradication of information poverty is a prerequisite to the eradication of economic poverty." In the same vein, our first Prime Minister, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, said, "Freedom from ignorance or information poverty is as important as freedom from hunger." These two statements do highlight that if at all we are keen to eradicate poverty, or we are keen at the development of the nation, what we should do is to eradicate information poverty and ignorance, so that you see people could be active participants in the development programs. And such a stupendous task can be fulfilled only through mass communication and public relations. In fact, mass communication and public relations, mass communication as means and public relations and the end, are the two eyes of national development. India, particularly independent India, can be proud of two greatest achievements. The first achievement is India now has emerged as world's largest vibrant democracy with over 81 crore voters. The second achievement, once you see, India was known as a country of starvation deaths, country of famines, a country of sadhus, sannyasis. Now India is a changed country. India is now 7th largest economy in the world And India has been classified as a new industrialized country. And India is now poised to become world's third biggest economy. Along with these programs, see, our Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi ji, has launched a number of flagship programs such as Make in India, Digital India, Skill India, Look to East policy, and he has visited a number of foreign countries. All these measures are in the direction of transforming India into a global player. One example, while launching Skill India program, our Prime Minister said India will be world's biggest human resource center, and he said about 40 crore people will be trained by 2020 as part of our strategy to end the poverty in this country. And why in all these programs, mass communication and public relations can play a major role. It can play. And in our studios, we have two distinguished experts in the field, Professor P.L. Vishweshwar Rao, former Dean of Arts, Usmania University. On the other side, Srimati Aruna Ravikumar, senior freelance journalist, are here to enlighten our student on the topic. Professor Vishweshwar Rao garu, I think you see our topic envisages broadly 4 areas. Number 1, mass communication and mass media. Number 2, public relations. Number 3, national development in the direction of making India a global economic player. And number 4, the role of mass media and public relations in transforming India as a global economic player. Could you explain, for the benefit of our students, the concept of mass communication and mass media?
Thank you very much, Dr. C.V. Narasimhareddy. You have given a very good comprehensive introduction to the subject. I also take this opportunity to welcome all the students and the viewers for this program. We are discussing a very important and a very significant subject. I think when you are talking about the media, it is very important for students to understand if there is any country in the world where mass media is growing rapidly, it is India. And when you are talking about this rapid growth which is taking place in mass media in India, there is a relationship between mass media growth and economic development. If there is no economic development, mass media will not be going. And I think students need to have an understanding. There are about 90,000 newspapers and publications in India, according to the latest report of the Registrar of Newspapers of India. When in the rest of the world, well, newspapers are dying, the circulation is not increasing, the readership is not increasing, but in India, there is a different kind of a phenomenon in India. 90,000 publications in India, including weeklies, dailies, and of course, the reason is in India is a multilingual country, that we publish newspapers in several languages. And the other important thing we need to understand, one of the fastest growing media in this country is television. According to the latest estimates we have, India is having almost about 925 television channels. Why are television channels growing in this country? In terms of media economics, everyone needs to understand media growth can only take place when the economy is sound, when economy is good, because the entire television and newspapers are run on the basis of advertising. Advertising can only take place when there is economic growth, when industrial growth is there. That is why it is growing. Then we look at the film. We are putting Hollywood to shame. India produces, in terms of Bollywood, 950 films. India is the largest film producing country in the world. Estimates are we are likely to produce about 1,200 films in the next 2-3 years. And then we need to talk about another media of mass communication, the radio. All of us thought radio was a dead medium. With frequency modulation, radio as a communication tool has been revolutionized. Very soon we are going to be having licenses given to radio. News is going to be there. 24/7 is going to be there. So earlier we were only talking about the 4 estates in the country. The first estate, the second estate, the third estate, and the fourth estate. Fourth pillar of Indian democracy is the mass media. Then we have got legislature, executive, and judiciary. The 3 pillars of Indian democracy. But today, there is the 5th pillar of Indian democracy which has emerged, which we need to talk about, the social media. And social media is growing very, very rapidly. The entire communication among young people today is taking place on Twitter, on email and websites, web-based newspapers, blogs, etc. It's also important we need to talk about
we have
this media.
100 cell phones, 100 crore cell phones.
When we are talking about development, of course, we need to talk about, unfortunately, in this country, there are more mobile phones than schools and then toilets. But that is a contradiction of India, which we'll come to it later.
Yeah.
But then, mass media plays a very important role in development. What is the role of the mass media? As Dr. Narasimha has said, it has to create awareness, knowledge. There is no country in the world, with the kind of complex kind of problems we have. Poverty is the problem, unemployment is the problem, literacy is the problem, gender justice is the problem. But at the same time, we have to look at the whole world is looking to India. Why are they looking to India? Because there is a massive human resource skill, which is available. Why are they looking to India? Because we are the largest democracy in the world and we are a vibrant democracy in the world. There is a relationship between media growth again in terms of the democratic values and democratic traditions we have in this country. Democracy has survived in this country for 67 years. It is very strong, it is vibrant, and I'm sure it is growing. In that kind of a context, I think we need to talk about the role of media in terms of trying to set democratic values and democratic traditions. That is the reason why media is growing. And as I've said, for any kind of economic development, we need to have information. As doctor talked about, you have to eliminate not only economic poverty, we are also talking about elimination of information poverty, so that people have awareness, public opinion. In a democracy, it is very, very important. Why do we launch all developmental programs in the country? For the benefit of the people. If the people have to participate in development, if the people have to participate in modernization and social change, media plays an important role and public relations plays an important role in creating that kind of an awareness.
Yes, Miss.
Yeah, true.
I request my colleague to comment.
Yeah, Professor Rao and Dr. Reddy have already elaborated at large on the role of mass media, on how India is a vibrant democracy, how we have a young literate force out to capture the world, and whatever happens anywhere in the world, there is an Indian there, I think. So Indian presence is very global now, and with economic reforms, as you said, which propels media growth. We have all kinds of media now, from print to broadcast to the latest social media, and everything has been contributing to the creating awareness. The best part of media is that it creates awareness to a large section of the population, as opposed to interpersonal communication or communications or drawing room discussions or even dharnas or street, whatever happens anywhere in the world, the media gets it. So, and television, as you know, has been bringing the world to our drawing rooms. So, and also it addresses not only the literate population but also the illiterate population.
How is changing socio-economic scenario?
Exactly. The print medium was confined to people who read, and it is also said that those who do not read have no advantage over those who cannot read. Unfortunately, lots of people are illiterate, but they don't read or educate themselves. And even in the rural population, when you're talking about having a proper development as opposed to lopsided development, when we want to bring the rural population into the mainstream, I think we have to address the rural population. And television, I think, has really made great inroads in this direction, because even the rural, those who cannot read also can understand what, especially the regional channels, they are able to follow what's happening around, and discussions like this, they are able to participate, they are able to understand what is there for them and participate in development. So I think,
as we have discussed, as she has very lucidly explained, as we have discussed in your course material, in this country, when we are talking about media, we are not talking about one media. We are talking about multimedia approach to communication. We are talking about use of various media. Because after all, when you are talking about communication, there is the context of this country. There is a huge country which over about 125 crore population. Unfortunately, there are still about 30% of the population in this country totally illiterate. When you are talking about development programs, when you are talking about agriculture programs, when you are talking about health programs or nutrition programs or rural development programs, we are not talking about use of one media. We are using newspapers,
right.
We are using radio, we are using television. As you was talking about, television is an audio-visual medium.
Also folk arts.
Yeah, and folk media, interpersonal communication, one visual is equivalent to 1,000 words, one photograph is equivalent to 1,000 words. And I think it's important that we need to talk about such media in this country. We are talking about traditional media, we are talking about extension communication workers such as MROs, BDOs, village level workers. We need to use multimedia approach to communication. We also have to definitely use the social media, which is rather growing rapidly in this country for purposes. So what we are talking about use of multimedia.
Let us discuss something about communication aspect. See, communication is a lifeblood of public relations and communication. Communication is divided into person to person communication, group communication, mass communication. Our subject is mass communication. Could you enlighten on mass communication?
No,
what are the advantages or disadvantages for the benefit of this?
One of the major advantages in terms of mass media, when you're talking about we are a democracy. With all the limitations we have, Indian media is a free media. Because democracy cannot operate in this country when we do not have free media. And in fact, all the students should know 19(1)(a) of the Indian Constitution talks about freedom of speech and expression, which has been interpreted by the Supreme Court 50 years ago, saying that freedom of speech and expression means the freedom of the media. So in this country, when you are talking about the media, we have got news, we have got editorial opinion, we have got views, and we also have so-called news analysis, interpretation, investigative journalism, sting operations. All this is there. Why is that possible? It is only possible because we have a free media. And look at the several kinds of scams and scandals which unfortunately have been taking place in this country. We get to know. How do we get to know? The media gives us information. Recently there is a major socio-economic survey which has been carried out. All of us know about what is the poverty level in this country, how rural development programs are being implemented, to what extent we are implementing, how much of money we are spending for various kinds of programs, and in addition to that, when you are talking about the free media, we have right to information. One of the remarkable legislations in this country. Every citizen of this country has got the right to seek information from any kind of a public funded agency. So it's a very good question when you talk about there is a relationship between media and democracy and development. Development can only take place through participation of the people. How can people participate?
Professor Rao, I'd like to add, RTI has also strengthened the media in many ways.
Certainly.
Because it has brought out issues into the public forum.
There are several journalists, several ordinary people seeking information under the RTI Act, then going to the media, then going to the Supreme Court, then going to the High Court.
So it is difficult to conceal information as it was done in the past now. Everything is in the public domain.
To answer the question, the role of the media is to create awareness, the role of the media is to create knowledge, to influence people, to deliberate on what are the issues of this country, or deliberate on development program. Ultimately, we need to go about adopting. If you look at the history of the media, there is no country in the world which has launched a satellite instructional television experiment. As you know, as our viewers also know, many experiments we have launched in this country of use of media for development, for social change, for economic change, for industrial change, for development, and the media is playing an important role.
Yes, I think propelled by technology, the technology that is available. If we are able to speak to our students now, this is also the result of technology.
If we
very soon we're going to be having virtual classrooms. How is that going to be possible? Use of the media.
If we consider the impact of the media, I must say, a good example is pulse polio. Now India has been declared as pulse polio free country. And this has been possible because of the media, mass communication, public relations.
And also multimedia. We also used rural newspapers, wall writings, interpersonal communication. We sent doctors, we sent nurses.
Yes.
In a country like
advertising with celebrities.
We have all celebrity endorsement, people's endorsement, and India could become, after 65 years, India could become pulse polio free. How about that possible? It's a very good example.
Through sustained multimedia campaign.
Even Professor Vishweshwar Rao, the media must be proud of its role, particularly in green revolution and white revolution. Why I am mentioning white revolution, you must be knowing KEDA Rural Communication Project, wherein you see 650 television sets were installed, and there is the regular communication. As a result, you see the white revolution started thanks to KEDA.
So when you talk about that experiment, we are not talking about broadcast. We are talking about narrowcast. It is catering to about 650 villages. Going back into history, when you look at radio, high yielding varieties in this country were popularized by radio. In rural areas, they used to call it radio rice.
Yes.
Right.
So we have got a historic role
Right.
the media has played in this country in the last 70 years.
We now also have
Yes.
community radio and giving
Right. Now,
weather forecasts and
very good example.
what
Community radio has become popular. Campus radios have become popular. Rural areas are having radio sets.
we have to
now.
be proud of the fact that many women are involved in this community radio
Also.
program.
Now let us come to the second area of our topic, public relations. How do you define public relations in the Indian context?
Well, whether in the Indian context or in the Western context, public relations can only be defined. For me, PR means performance. Performance is important. For government, performance is important. For government, governance is important. For a multinational company, governance is important. For a public sector, governance is important. What is your product? How well your product is doing? How well your image of that particular product is. It is very important. When you perform, you get recognition. Another definition of public relations is performance and reality. Reality is important. We need to understand, and I'm very happy that we are discussing this subject today, and the whole world is looking to India. Why are they looking to India? Because we are a huge country. We are already a third economy, and we want to become the largest economy. We want to overtake America and China. Can we overtake America and China? Definitely we can overtake America and China, because we are 125 crore population. We have already gone into the Make India program. Today's newspapers talk about a very interesting advertisement which the government of India has issued, from red tape to red carpet. In other words, we are saying, they are telling the entire world, come to India.
There is
Make in India.
red carpet.
We will give you a red carpet welcome. Why did they realize? Mr. Narendra Modi has realized, and the entire government of India has realized, without economic growth, without economic participation of the people, development cannot take place. As we have been talking about, there is hunger here, there is poverty here. Unfortunately, that hunger and poverty can only be eliminated provided we become the part of the industrial growth which the rest of the world is witnessing. And we already have WTO, World Trade Organization. India is a signatory to the World Trade Organization. We are a part of the GATS agreement, General Agreement for Trade and Traffic, tariff. So we are opening our economy to the rest of the world, and we are inviting. When we talk about from red tape to we are saying no longer bureaucracy, no longer license Raj. We are living in an era of globalization. We are living in an era of privatization. We are living in an era of liberalization since 1991. We are opening our doors.
That brings to you see, this 1991 new industrial policy resolution that envisages economic liberalization, privatization and globalization. As a result, to see, at a time when we sold 60 tons of gold, as a result of this new policy, India has purchased 200 tons of gold from International Monetary Fund. How do you comment this?
Dr. Reddy, before that, I would like to add one
yes,
about public relations. Professor Rao said it's all about performance, but it's also about communicating what you're doing, because communication is all important. Though public relations has had the negative connotations in the sense that they say it's like whitewashing and telling people that about things that are not happening. So here we are saying things are happening and they have to be communicated. So it's a two-way communication within the organization and communication about the organization to the world at large.
That's a very good point. I was looking at from a slightly different perspective. When you're talking of public relations itself, public relations means media relations.
True.
Public relations means communication. Public relations means informing your target audiences. And target audiences in this country are very, very complex. It's not a very ordinary kind of an audience. We have rural audience, we have urban audience, we have educated audience, we have uneducated audience. We have 50% of the population in this country are women. Primarily the function of public relations to inform people, inform about the company, inform about your product, create awareness about your product, create awareness about your company, what you are manufacturing, what is the quality of your product you are manufacturing. In that sense, I talked about performance.
Another important aspect of public relations is not only informing, but keep the management with feedback information, the pulse of the public. That is another.
Right.
Today we are talking about public relations in terms of public relations in the management function. Public relations, we are seeing management objectives. We are talking about reputation. management.
So it's not a one-way communication, it's
It
a
is, of
two-way
course,
communication.
All
with feedback.
communication is the two-way communication is one way, because communication process itself is not
Right.
complete, without feedback. In communication, there is a source, there is a message, there is a channel, and there is a feedback.
True.
Yeah, as you are very rightly saying, public relations is the two-way communication, that is from the company to the target audience, from people to the back.
Right.
As long as we do not get positive response, as long as we don't get positive feedback, then
So at
our
one level
communication-
you're keeping your employees happy, at the other
Yeah.
level you're telling them what the company is all about,
So
and what governance is
in
all
public
about.
relations, we talk about internal communication and external communication. We also have shareholders are there, stakeholders are there. There are
True,
several people who have
financial
invested
bodies.
in your company, so they have a right to know. And in a democracy, when you're talking about public sectors, it's the people's money which is involved in the public sector. We are accountable to legislature, we are accountable to parliament. So
Right.
there are various segmentation of audience, segmentations of publics are there.
So in that
As
sense,
to the-
public relations is a very positive
it
thing.
is a positive role.
Yes.
It is a positive role. We need to inform all kinds of stakeholders and shareholders and publics, and it is the responsibility of the organization to keep the people informed, public informed about our functioning, about our performance. That becomes very important.
If I say the state of the art of public relations in India, I think I can sum up. Public relations has grown quantitatively, and it is yet to go qualitatively. The professional excellence is the need of the hour, where we must professionalize through education. That is the need of the hour. How do you?
As you know, Dr. Reddy, in terms of public relations, we have been talking about in this country for the last 30-40 years, and I'm sure all professions have gone through that kind of a phase. Were we talking about management as a discipline 50 years ago? We did not talk about it as an academic discipline, as a research discipline. We were not discussing about management courses, but today,
Yes.
business schools have emerged very strong in this country. We were talking about architecture 30-40 years ago. We were not talking about. Today we go to qualified architecture. But I would like to look at it positively, as the industry is growing, as more and more corporates are coming to India, as multinational companies are coming to India. Public relations is also becoming as a profession. More and more trained young men and women are today getting into public relations schools and colleges, and I'm sure as we grow along, and a lot of companies today are recruiting people, and I've said public relations itself is a management function. They are looking for people who can manage the company with public relations, ability to write, ability to report, ability to bring out house journals, ability to make television program, and I'm sure the right kind of people.
And it's also
are
not
coming
something
in.
that can be seen in isolation. It's seen along with the other processes of
Right.
growth and development.
We are positive as we go along. We'll have more schools of mass communication, more schools of journalism, more schools of public relations, so that more and more trained men and women will come in. As you know, in America, they are public relations is already a major discipline in all colleges.
Now let us concentrate the global economy. For example, the World Trade Organization has announced India is the 9th largest exporter in the world and 12th largest importer in the world. And we do export engineering goods, electrical goods, and agricultural waste goods, and we also import mostly what you call the women use gold and pearls, and of course machinery we import. And in the backdrop of what you said, red carpet, let us discuss the implications of the new industrial policy that has changed the entire country. What is your view about this? Now the entire economy has entered into a global competitive marketing environment.
So
we find trade wars. There is a sea change in the communication as well as in the business. How do you react to this?
One of the major things we need to understand, because since 1991, I think we need to make very interesting points. Since 1991, India has been vigorously pursuing, whichever government came to power, globalization. What is, after all, the meaning of globalization for the students? They need to understand. Primarily, when we are talking about globalization, there are no borders. The borders have collapsed.
Yes.
Anyone can come and do business in India. Earlier, before 1991, we had a license Raj. We need to go to the industries department, take hundreds of clearances, pollution clearance, environmental clearance, banks were not willing to support those kind of stuff. Simply, when we talk about globalization, there are no borders. If you have the money, you can come and do business. You have to do business ethically, you have to do business professionally. And then, simultaneously we are talking about liberalization. What is liberalization? Liberalization primarily means that we are encouraging people. We are liberal in terms of trying to give licenses and clears, and privatization. If you look at Indian history, predominantly in the 1950s and 60s, we only had the public sector. There were navaratnas in public sector. Now we have opened up our economy. Now there is a discussion going on even in terms of private sector. We need to have navaratnas in terms of who are doing. So industrial policy primarily said we were not going to have those kind of licenses. We welcome different kinds of people.
And emphasis on quality, I think, because when the private sector comes in, it brings with it quality, expertise.
In terms of look at 30 years ago, 20 years ago, we are talking about dosa, but today it has become pizza. All our children are going to pizza. McDonald's has come. Huge food giants. Pizza Hut has come into India. Different kinds of chains are coming to India. Globalization means giving an opportunity for the rest of the world to come and establish. And as she's saying, we certainly want quality. Recently, we have heard about
that paved the way. Recently, we transforming India as a global economic player.
Recently, we talked about the Maggi noodle in this country, the kind of a controversy which has Maggi noodle is a brand which has come to India. Or take even Kellogg's. So
you can have now certain standards. If you don't subscribe to these standards, then how a bigger brand you are.
You have to issue about export. India today exports is about 3.5% in terms of contribution to Indian economy and the global economy, and India is going to become a huge market. It is going to become a huge market primarily because we have got 70% of our population is young population. True. For your understanding, we need to talk about, for students' understanding, we need to talk about 50% of the people working with NASA are Indians. 50% of the people working with Bill Gates, Microsoft are Indians. Look at the contribution of India.
Yes.
Not only in terms of economic, entire economy of America will collapse. 50% of the doctors all over the world are India. So we also need to have.
When you spoke about not having borders, we don't even have to go to the country. We can do business sitting right here.
Right now, because social media makes it possible.
Earlier, world was round. Now it is flat. No, see when you.
So in other words, to make that point, earlier we were an inward economy. Today we have become an outward economy. We are looking for market outside the world. We are encouraging markets to come to India and participate. Very soon, we will also have newspapers coming to India. Washington Post, New York Times, Boston Globe, and already television channels are already operating from India. So we are opening.
When we are talking about the global,
and we are talking about foreign direct investment.
I know.
Foreign direct investment is coming to India. Earlier we were not allowing foreign direct investment. When you talk about economic growth, we need to talk about how we are allowing this foreign direct investment to come to India.
When we are talking about India being a global player, I am reminded of a good quotation of Mark Twain. Mark Twain over 100 years ago said, India is the cradle of human race. India is the birthplace of human speech. India is the mother of history. India is the grandmother of religion. India is the great grandmother of tradition. And he said, all instructive materials in the history of the man are treasured in India. That is the greatness of India. Now we talk of globalization, but India has been a great country even in ancient India also. That what we are telling, but Mark Twain said.
We have to look at it from the economic dimension.
Exactly.
About 7-8 years ago, there was a recession in the entire world. But India did not witness that kind of a recession in the world. Now Greece is going through a major crisis, economic crisis, but India is not going through that kind of a recession or that kind of crisis. Why? Because the economic systems, the core economic systems of this country are very, very strong. We have a strong public sector in India. With all the globalization and privatization we are talking about, Indian Railways is the biggest public sector in the world. And there are several public sectors in this country. There is a balanced kind of a growth, taking place just because of the globalization policies. We are not saying the entire economy we are opening to the private sector in India. That is one of the reasons why our economic.
But Professor Rao, I think now we have to look at the rural side also. Growth cannot be lopsided. Now we have to bring rural economy into the mainstream. And
there is also at the same time planning going on in terms of trying to strengthen the rural economy, the rural industry, the weaver sector, the handloom sector, other kinds of sectors are there in this country. We are not going to be neglecting, because still 70% of India is in rural areas. We are launching, if you look at, 70% of our budget is for rural development.
Yes.
Let us also discuss on Make in India, Digital India, Skill India as part of our topic. How do you react? Make in India first.
The concept of Make in India primarily talks about saying that there are several people, several industrialists are there. We are saying come to India.
Come to India.
We are prepared to. The government policy is talking about this policy simply is talking about from red tape to red carpet, is simply talking about come to India. We can lead in the manufacturing sector. Look at China now. Every product which is made in China is dumped to India. So Narendra Modi's policy is in terms of is inviting leading industrialists and leading entrepreneurs. There are a lot of young people who are there all over the world, in Europe, in America, and UK. We are saying come to India. We will give you infrastructure. We will give you subsidies. We will give you tax holiday. We will give you land. After all, one of the major things which is required in terms of establishment and industry is land is required, power is required, water is required, subsidies are required, tax holidays are required. So we are saying we will give you, but what is important is at the same time governance is important. Only when we have social, economic, political stability. Luckily, of course, this country right now. Earlier, we had 25 parties ruling.
No numbers earlier.
Government we had. There was something called a coalition dharma, but today we do not have. That is where when you look at the growth. Yesterday's data indicates the growth in this country is from 6.5 to 7%. At one point of time, we were growing at 8%. China is the only country which is growing today at about 10.5 to 11%. And I'm sure. How can growth can take place? How can industrial growth, economic growth can take place when you have good governance?
So Make in India is one of the pitches to emerge as a world economic player.
We will emerge as it is. India, the third world, economic giants.
Right.
Compared to
now
America
in India
and China,
most of the automobiles are manufactured in India, and
manufacturing industry, pharmaceutical industry, drug industry, as it is, Andhra Pradesh, Hyderabad leads in terms of pharmaceutical industry and other kinds
of. Food processing also is
and IT industry also.
IT industry, of course, IT industry, we are the leading industry. As I said, Microsoft with Bill Gates, 50% of the people working. Bill Gates will have to shut down his shop.
Indians are withdrawn.
Look at the CEO
from Hyderabad.
So, what is important in terms of this kind of a industrial growth is governance is important. Governance means responsibility, accountability, responsibility, transparency. Very good. Transparency, openness is important. And we have already opened our economy for others, so that kind of openness is important. And then, what is important? Peace is important. When we have conflict,
harmony,
peace, all kinds of harmony. Harmony is important. Peace is important. We need to have less conflict. And why do people come? Because we are a democracy. After all, people come not only to establish an industry, but they also would like to have the freedom to function, freedom to operate. That is where they try to come. So when we look at when we look at India,
next, I would like you to comment on Digital India. How it is going to help.
It is,
today only I read, a very interesting story I read. You see, one farmer, he incurred lot of losses because he could not apply the technology pesticides. When he got a tablet, then you see, he took the photograph of the plant and showed it to scientist. He said he asked him to apply a particular pesticide. And so that's why how Digital India is going to.
The emergence of social media in this country, communication has been totally revolutionized. And today, many of them have access to social media.
True.
We are talking about digital India. The concept of Digital India primarily means that every citizen of this country should access to new technology. the new media, the social media,
Yes.
so that we can send information, get information. As you're talking about, people would like to have what is the weather condition, the weather information, what are the government policies are there. You see, take NREGA, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural
Employment
Guarantee Act is one of the major programs. Why did we launch that particular program? People have to be aware. When you are talking about digital media, if you can use technology to a great extent, information technology, the social media, and government of India is trying to make, so that we need to have more and more people educated. Already the world is concerned about digital divide.
True.
You were talking about information rich and information poor,
True.
but unfortunately in a country like India, that 30% of the people are not literate, they don't have access to
Exactly,
education.
Professor. I have nothing against digital India, because digital India will give them power. At the same time, we don't have basic infrastructure in schools.
Right.
We have high dropout rates. We don't have girls going to schools.
Right.
And
So-
the rural areas are really totally cut off from the mainstream. So
when-
before we go digital, I think more emphasis on education policy is required.
Yeah, when we are discussing this, India is already a global economic player. It will become a major economic player. As she has very rightly said, we need to have more schools, more colleges. We have launched a major program 2 days ago, Skill Mission.
That's
In
right.
all
The
kinds
third
of-
area is that
yeah.
There's no point in giving a tablet to a student who doesn't have a classroom,
Agreed,
who has to
agreed.
sit under a tree and he has no teachers.
Agreed. That is where when we are talking about India, there is no country in the world where that kind of a challenges are there, and we have
Yeah.
been meeting these challenges in the last 68 years successfully, and we need to meet those challenges. That's
Yes.
where I said we are investing. We need to invest more if you want to become a major global player. We need to see that all our 125 crore population have education, health. They should also have small industry.
True.
Small industry. Not that we are not.
Rural
going in that
tourism,
kind of a
rural
direction.
tourism also can be promoted.
Tourism, there is no country in the world where there are so many people,
Right.
who come from tourism emerging as a major industry. So we are talking about medical tourism.
Right.
In terms of getting not only getting treated in India, but then you
Yes.
also go and some kind of a
The Ayurveda
So
and spas.
what is important?
So
is,
how I want to ask you how the Skill
No,
India.
you're talking about skill. When you're talking about digital India, because the entire governance is going to be through e-commerce. We're talking about e-commerce,
No, e-commerce.
e-marketing, e-industry,
Paperless
e-public
administration.
e-public relations. Everything is going to be through electronic mode. Through electronic mode, there will be greater transparency, greater efficiency,
Yes.
greater accuracy, greater speed, etc., etc. As you know that the way we were communicating 100 years ago, but communication is not going to be that kind of a mode,
Right.
that kind of a tone. So everything now has become electronic mode of communication. I'm sure
Right.
once more and more people get educated in rural areas, they will also use they will be in a position to do look at today internet marketing. We are in a position to market
Yes.
any product.
The use
We are
of
in a
paper
position
is going to be reduced greatly, I
Yeah.
think. So
And we are,
maybe ultimately the environment is also protected. No
See,
cutting down
if you're
trees.
going to be having a mobile
Yes.
with you, the whole world is with you. The whole humanity is with you.
Right.
Look at the power of the media.
Yes.
Today we can access internet. You can send a message, and I'm
Yes.
sure
You can
we
get
are
news
talking-
updates.
We are talking about we are talking about holistic development. When you are talking about economic player, we are talking about holistic development. People have to develop economic development, balanced growth of development, education, health. We are talking about sustainable economic growth, sustainable development, protecting ecology, protecting environment. Simply, we are not talking about development.
Yeah.
So India is one country which is concerned about development, economic, and we have got a huge population. You've got a huge population. And in another 30 years, India is not only going to be the largest democracy, largest population is going to be
Yes.
in this
Overtaking
country because
China.
we are overtaking China. So we need to have education. Holistic development is important. I'm sure
Now-
as part of economic development.
Now
we will
another
also apply-
area that we have to discuss is our Prime Minister always says, look to East policy. East, how it is going to help us in the global economy.
See, if you look at Mr. Narendra Modi, after he became the Prime Minister, he has already visited in the last about 55 days or so, about 25 countries.
Yes.
Why are we visiting? As we have been discussing, the whole world is looking to India.
Right.
Whether look east or look west, we have been having industrial relations.
Right.
Yeah, we have been having economic relations with America for so long. So it is not a question of west or east. The whole world is looking to India. Because India has got a huge market. Indian middle class population is almost about 400 million. America doesn't have a population of 300 million.
And India is centered, very centered in its
Look
approach.
at the kind of population we have. There is market here. So no country, whether east or west, cannot look at it. Of course, he also went to west. He went to America. Then he established a rapport with Barack Obama.
Right.
America is also looking for economic relations with India. But the point which is important, our students need to understand, the whole world is looking to India. Because India has got a huge population, India is a democracy, and India has got a huge market. Any product can sell in India. Look at the cosmetics industry. I'm sure huge cosmetics industry
set to grow, right,
in this country. There are about 950 shades of lipstick in India. Right? There are young people who would like to look at.
Right.
So the whole economy is looking in that kind of a direction. Every industry is growing. Pharmaceutical industry, cosmetics industry is growing. Education is one of the major sector. With foreign direct investment coming in, they also want to come and establish universities and colleges in India. It's already open for retail sector.
Right.
We have been opening retail sector in the last 20 years.
So you have the best of teachers also coming towards.
Best of the teachers will come to India. Best of product will come to India because there is market, and anyone who's doing public relations will suggest to their managers that look at India. India has got a huge market. 400 million middle class population is there.
And this focus on skill development is also related to this aspect, I think, because
the skill development mission. In fact, for the first time, the government of India has launched a ministry of skill development.
Right.
Because not only we want to send our children to universities and colleges, but then right kind of skills are required to work with transnational companies, with multinational companies, with corporates they need to have. And we are moving in the right kind of a direction in this country, and I'm sure India will become a global economic giant.
Another flagship program that our Prime Minister launched is Jan Dhan Yojana, that has close linkage with economy.
Right.
How do you react on that?
No, that
Getting
is
so
a
many
very
bank
good program.
accounts.
That
Yes.
is a very good program. People who did not have banks,
Right.
people could not open any kind of an account, and then people who did not have any kind of an insurance, we are saying simply contribute every month 15 or 20 rupees, then you are a part of that insurance package. It is very, very important. After all, when you are talking about development, our poor people, our workers need to be protected. If someone unfortunately dies in an accident, immediately that person will get a 2 lakh rupees.
Yes.
That's a good. Millions and millions of them in this country did not have access to banks with this Jan Dhan program. They have insurance, they have a bank account. If someone is giving subsidy, if someone is giving, now all this LPG gas.
Yes.
Whatever subsidy the government of India is giving is directly going into their banking.
So step towards transparency also. Because of all the subsidies.
E-banking, e-marketing. So there is a revolution which is taking place in India. There is an information revolution. That information revolution is giving to social revolution in India, and that is the kind of a direction we are moving.
You mean to say that Jan Dhan Yojana will ultimately contribute to the economy of our?
Of course, it already contributed to the economy.
Definitely.
So several people invested money in the banks. That money can be used for development, for subsidies, for agricultural crop. So we are moving in that kind of
whatever
direction.
we are talking, I think we are talking about major industries, about cities, but India lives in its villages. If there are 6 lakh villages, only 4,000 towns and cities. And what is needed today is rural infrastructure, rural industries, rural communication system. But I think it is being neglected. What is your
Actually, sometimes the planning in this country has been because we had so many planning commission was there, the plans were there. Unfortunately, some of the planning was only Delhi centric. Some of the plans were only urban centric. We are now talking about developing 100 cities in India, and I'm sure development in this country cannot take place with rural development. Development in this country cannot take place without rural industries prospering. Right. Rural industries have got to be modernized. Rural industry. If you look at in terms of the artisans, the occupational groups, every caste there is an occupation around them. They have been contributing significantly for economic growth in the country. So I would definitely agree with you when you are talking about, there must be balanced growth, there must be holistic growth. In fact, India, 70% of the people live on agriculture still today. We are contributing, agriculture contributes very significantly. At one point of time, agriculture was contributing 20%.
We now have a food processing ministry and food processing industries. So that's also related to agriculture and rural.
What we need to tell our students is, when you are talking about development, should be in totality.
Right.
Holistic. Rural development is important. Agriculture development is important.
Inclusive.
We need to center rural industry. We need to strengthen our handloom sector, our handicraft sector.
Right.
India is very, very popular for handicrafts.
Right.
We export handicrafts. We also have to strengthen, various kinds of industries. We are not talking in terms of, in the process of globalization, I know, unfortunately, some of these industries are in the process of getting disintegrated.
Right.
But then we need to modernize them. We need to invest, a great deal in them. Rural industries have to become strengthened. And the media, again, plays an important role in trying to inform policy makers, saying that some of these industries
people
are
say
collapsing.
this media is urban oriented and elite media. How do you react to this? You see, when we talk of villages.
I think if there's any country in the world where media has been highlighting rural concerns, rural developmental issues, as we talked about
India,
the KEDA
definitely.
experiment,
Right.
we talked about the BRAOU experiment,
Right,
we go back into history, radio rural forums, or go back
Not
into
only that,
history.
whether it's environmental issues or agitations or replacement of rehabilitation of victims displaced by dams, so many social issues are highlighted by the media. And these are all Adivasis. They concern the rural population, the tribal population.
When you look at, a great deal of space and time on television has to be given to the tribal problems, the Adivasis problems, the problems of the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes. As I said, India is a country with many complexities, many contradictions. At one time, we are in a position to land in the Mars, but at the same time, there is poverty in this country. There is illiteracy in this country.
Bullock cart on the one side, another side is jet airplane.
But we are in a situation where the Right to Education Act is not being implemented in many areas for various reasons.
In 1975, we did not have a satellite in this country. We borrowed a satellite from America. But today we are in a position to manufacture a satellite. So growth is taking place, development is taking place, but development has to percolate down to the people. It has to trickle down to the poorest of the poor in India. The kind of a diversity which is there. India is having the largest number of billionaires in India, but at the same time we have poverty in this country. That contradiction has to be eliminated.
The divide is
still about 30% of the population is below the poverty line.
Below the poverty line, and that is where we need to have. That's where we were talking about Narega scheme. We are launching more and more. That's where governance is important. Governance is important. We need to see efficiently these programs are implemented.
It's not merely the announcement of schemes, but to ensure that the beneficiaries, real beneficiaries, are benefited by
beneficiaries, and then there should not be any kind of a misuse.
Yes,
there are several studies which have been carried out. Our students should know that and corruption perception index. We are one of the countries which are perceived to be very corrupt. And what does governance mean?
Yes.
Governance means efficiency, transparency, openness, effective implementation of the program, response of the people, and we are working in that direction. We are talking about good governance today. We have borrowed the terminology from the World Bank, and we are also talking, not only we are talking about governance, we are talking about good governance. And I think we need to be positive.
Yes.
And I am one of those people who believe cynicism cannot be an option.
And before we come to some conclusion, what is the future of mass communication and public relations vis-a-vis global economic players?
If you are talking about the future of mass media in this country, mass media will continue to grow in
India. Has a very bright future.
Why will it continue to grow in India? Because of the diversity we have in this country. Look at the language diversity we have. Is there any country in the world which has got so many languages? Is there any country in the world which has got so many religions? We are a multi-religious country. Is there any country in the world which has got so many political parties? There are 4,000 political parties in this country which are registered with the Election Commission. So democracy is thriving. As long as democracy grows in this country, mass media will also grow. And because of economic development which is taking place, as we have seen in the last 10 years, you see how mass media was growing. 30 years ago we only had one channel called Doordarshan, but today we have got 950 television channels. And as the economy is growing, and public relations also has got a very, very bright future. Public relations is information function.
Yes.
Is informing the people.
And another important factor is India is going to be the largest English speaking nation in the world.
Yes. Very right. Yes. Absolutely. Yes. No country in the world is going to have, that's where I said, human resource. Why is that, not only look east policy? Why is the west and east is looking to India? They want to look into India because, it's got, 400 million middle class population, highly educated population, highly skilled population.
We have all the resources. What we need is a informed young generation, because they have to take the country to the
very
future.
Good. Informed public opinion.
Yes.
And how is that democracy survived in this country? Right. Very popular leaders, we have thrown them out.
Right.
Why did we throw them out?
Right.
Because they did not perform, because there were certain problems with them. Mrs. Indira Gandhi was the most popular leader.
Right.
She imposed emergency because we are talking about media.
Right.
No one liked censorship. No one liked stifling with the freedom of the press.
Right.
We threw her out.
Right.
And earlier government did not perform very well. We threw them out.
Right.
UPA government.
Now,
we have an NDA government.
Now I
So
conclude.
the role of the media is very significant, is important. Whether in business,
It's as significant
trade,
as the development of the nation.
role of the media is important in trade, commerce, business, economy, public relations and democracy.
Thank you very much. I would like to conclude. See, there is a saying, a widespread understanding of the national development or making India as a global economic player is an essential stage in its fulfillment. Widespread understanding is required. And it is in this context the national development plans have to be carried to every home in the language and in the symbols understood by them and expressed in terms of their needs and problems. The public relation professionals, mass communication professionals, they are designing any programs, they must keep this in view in designing and reaching out to the people. And very important aspect, as we discussed in the national development, is media strategy. As I said in the beginning, in India, bullock cart on the one side and aeroplane on the other coexist. Similarly, India needs a media mix, a combination of 4 media: interpersonal media, folk art media, mass media and IT new media. A combination of these 4 only we will be able to cover to rich and poor, urban and rural.
We need to go with a hope that
I know.
We need to go with a hope, with a positive note that India will definitely become a global economic player. What we need to have, students who are qualified, students who are empowered, students who have skills, and that is what we are doing as part of this training program.
Finally, I would like to urge, in the context of India, see, if Buddhism has spread, Buddha is known as light of Asia. Buddhism, which was born in India, has spread to entire Asia. It is on account of interpersonal communication, household communication. This is very important in the context of India, and with this...
No, we have several examples in this country. Gandhi was there. How did Gandhi bring about a revolution?
Right.
There was no mass media at that time.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure we need to use a
So,
combination
with
of
these
all
few
media.
words, I thank Professor P.L. Vishweshwarrao Garu and I thank Srimati Aruna Ravikumar Garu for having come to our studios to enlighten our students on the important topic, mass communication and public relations in transforming India as a global economic player.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
The discussion has been
Namaste.
lively and interesting, and students have learned something so that they can implement in their profession and in practice. Thank you very much.